of becoming a cartoonist and an artist, and went to NYU for a short while and studied art, and was submitting cartoons to publications, most likely anonymously. Obviously in 1945, 1946, the country was still segregated. So he is most well known for the Luther comic strip, which he developed in the late 60s, and around 1968 he became a nationally syndicated cartoonist. It was first developed for Newsweek, which was at that time only a paper in Long Island. His daughter, Barbara Brandon Croft, was the first Black woman to be nationally syndicated in mainstream desegregated papers.
What inspired me to get into comic strips, I'm certain, is my dad. All my life, I watched him create. He had a studio in the house. He built one in the basement. He started out in the dining room, but ended up building one in the basement. So I saw it being done all the time. He was one of the pioneer Black cartoonists in the mainstream press. And that's what distinguishes me and my dad, is being in the mainstream press. Because there were Black cartoonists that were quite popular, and like Oliver Harrington, who made it in the Black press, but were not invited to be part of the mainstream press. So my dad in the 60s, 69, became one of the first. There are three of them. My dad, with his Luther, Quincy was another comic strip, Ted Shearer, and We Pals. You know, I'd actually even worked on my dad's strip as a kid, putting on the lecture tone, this little stuff that makes the dots on the face, and coloring in silhouettes. So I had been trained, and I didn't even realize it. So I felt like I could do it. I felt like if Dad can do it, I can do it. That was pretty cocky of me, but that's why I came up with the idea that I came up with. So with my comic strip, where I'm coming from, I use just heads of women. When I originally came up with this idea of doing a comic strip, it was for a Black women's magazine. And I thought that that would be the best thing, is to have Black women characters, especially since I'm a Black woman, I can identify with that. And my idea was to have the women, you're looking at the women in their faces and their eyes, and they're looking directly at them instead of looking at their bodies. And traditionally, women are summed up by their bodies. And in my opinion, we're just objectified that way. So I just wanted to have a chance to have Black women speaking directly to the reader, and speaking directly, or you listening in on what they're talking about, but not to think of them in terms of what their bodies were. When I first started out, I was going to have a different woman for everything I talked about, and then I narrowed it down to 9 women. And they all have different personalities, and a lot of them have parts of my own personality, I would say. So they have a character like Nicole, who is very self-absorbed, and she sees the mirror. She does not see much further past the mirror. Then I have somebody like Jackie, who's very emotional, and she's very anxious, she's very emotional. I have somebody like Lakeisha, who is socially conscious, and she, whenever I wanted to say something about racism or sexism, she was my go-to character. A character named Monica, who was very fair-skinned, light hair, light eyes, looked white, but she's very Black. And I liked using her to make that point, that, you know, we come in all shades, and we all come from different perspectives. So I used all these characters to talk about different aspects of Black women, and a lot of them are just different aspects of me. In the best of times, I was in a lot of newspapers. I was in 60 newspapers, which was pretty impressive. But, you know, I was in the Baltimore Sun, I was in Sacramento Bee, I was in the Atlanta Constitution and Journal. I had a lot of papers in the South and West. I didn't get the Northeast area. Unfortunately, the closest one I got was Baltimore Sun. I was in the Washington, not Post, but the Washington Times. But I was also in the Jamaica Gleaner, in the West Indian newspaper, and also in the South African Drum, and I was also in Canada. So I was in quite a few papers. I am the head of the Brandon Art Trust. I'm the youngest. I have a brother and a sister. But because I'm the cartoonist as well, my mom thought it would be good for me to take care, hold on to his stuff and make sure it's out there. So I am the keeper of my dad's work, and I make sure I look for ways to make sure it's displayed. And twice we've been able to showcase my dad's work along with mine, because we both made history, and so I am the one who's the keeper of them, and that's why we see in the gallery. You'll see many, many works of my dad's. He came up with games. He came up with board games, card games, books, all kinds of things, and really, really excited about keeping my dad's work alive.
This exhibition is as much about Mr. Brandon's work and Barbara Brandon Croft's work as it is about legacy, and passing down this desire to communicate not only your own experience and your own observations, but also just making connections in a community. Across the country, across the globe, like, people will read cartoons and feel something like almost instantaneously.
I'm the first one to be a black woman cartoonist in the mainstream press, nationally syndicated, and I feel quite proud about that. I feel really good about that.